Hello, this is Early Career Academic coming at you with another writing vlog. Enjoy this wonderful angle. Just to give you guys an update, I did not submit this project that I'm working on. In fact, I asked for an extension and was granted one. I wasn't the only person who needed one. And when I thought about the time frame from when they accepted this project to when it was due, I realized they were assuming that all of us had winter break to work on this. But as anyone who is a parent to little children knows, that daycares close over winter break. So between those days and the snow days and the sick days and everything, I just needed more time. But they were happy to grant the extension, so I'm excited about that. But what I really want to talk to you about is what I promised you before, which is some of the tips I have learned over the years to force myself to write when I'm feeling very resistant to the task. In the first place, it helps if you're writing about things that matter to you. It goes a long way to kind of instill the excitement, the anticipation, the competency you feel, especially over time working on similar projects. So that's my first tip, is if you can, focus on projects that really bring you to life. But even projects that are exciting to us can sometimes be a struggle to sit down and actually make progress on, especially when we have a lot of other things competing for our time and attention, like our children, for example. And so I have come up with a few tips and tricks that have worked pretty well for me to kind of keep momentum even through difficult periods. The first one that I want to talk about is to start with a non-writing task that brings you to your computer or to your writing device. This can be administrative, of course, but it can be almost anything. For me, sometimes it's actually creating content for this channel. Something that brings me to the computer and just gets me to sit down in a space where I do my research and writing can go a long way to kind of chipping away at the resistance I feel. So that's my first piece of advice. Now, you don't want to start with a task that just spirals out of control. That's a trick. So find something that's discreet, that gets you to open your computer, that gets you re-engaged with your work. And sometimes that's what I call a pleasure bite. Sometimes you need to start out with like the dessert. So if there's some aspect of your research and writing that really just you love to do, maybe it's reading a new article or, free writing or something like this. Do that. Start with that. Even if it's not in the sequence you planned, just start with the pleasure bite. Start with the dessert to get yourself in it. The other thing I like to do is I like to consume content of other productive writers. I do certainly read and listen to podcasts about academic writing, but all writing productivity content helps keep me motivated and inspires me. And so sometimes it just literally snaps me out of a funk when I listen to a podcast and they're talking about finding joy in their work or publishing this cool article or starting this new method or pitching this new idea. It just like snaps me out of my funk and I get back to it. So consume a lot of content, and not like in a I need to figure this out kind of way, but I do it in a really routine kind of way. It just helps, again, keep momentum. Sorry about that. The other task that I think I might have mentioned already on this channel at some point is the last hour of the day. Sometimes when I'm really resistant, if I just tell myself I will take the last hour of my workday, and I do have a hard stop because of the children, I'll just do that last hour I'll devote to this project. And what it does is it gives me like a very firm stopping place. So it tricks me into thinking like, I can do this, because an hour isn't that much time, and it could even be less time for you. It could be like, I only have 30 minutes between this thing and this thing, so that's all I'm going to give to this project, and just make myself use that 30 minutes or that hour. As long as there's like a firm stop and start time, it tricks your brain into thinking, oh, this is manageable. I think it's harder actually sometimes to get us to sit down and write when we have huge blocks of time at our disposal. So sometimes cramming writing into a packed schedule where there is something that starts and stops that time period, it can actually be more useful to you if you resist writing. Another thing I recommend is the tiny task. So the tiny task this is a pretty common one, but like maybe you just need to, get your citations in order, or you need to format your document, or you need to track down that one like thing that you need for your project to move forward. Sometimes it forces you to just open up the document, interact with the file system that you created. So a tiny task is sometimes enough to get you over that resistance hurdle. So if it occurs to you as you're going through your project, especially when you're doing really well with it, write down some of the tiny tasks that like, even when you're in a flow state and you're like, oh, I don't have time to go do blank, put that down somewhere. And then when you're really resistant, you can say, okay, I'm just going to tackle this tiny task. And sometimes that's enough to like domino effect, get you back into the project. And the last one that I recommend, but I haven't done as often as I probably should, is something equivalent to the concept of morning pages. You might have heard about this from the Artist's Way, but essentially it is a kind of like metacognitive writing, a journaling exercise where before you get back with your project, you just start free writing about why you're feeling resistant, what you're insecure about, which is anything on your mind, like anything that's kind of standing between you and the project. Sometimes this kind of low stakes, reflective style of writing can be a really good tool to get you through that like obstacle that is preventing you from embracing your writing. And sometimes it helps even with breakthroughs. We're like one of the reasons we're resistant to writing is because we're afraid that our argument isn't solid, or we don't have enough research, or we have too much research, or we just can't think of like the right way to express this, or we're insecure because we're sharing something vulnerable with our readers. So kind of working through some of that stuff through journaling that no one's going to see but you can really unblock you in a productive way, and can even like illuminate things to yourself that you otherwise would not be able to do. And linked with that same concept is taking a break. Sometimes you need to take a legitimate break from everything. Go out, go get the mail, stare at the sky for a while. Sometimes you literally need to give yourself, your eyes, your ears, everything a break so that you can move past whatever it is that's blocking you. And sometimes not just blocking you, but kind of freeing you to pursue something that you really need to do for your project. So those are some of the ways that I get past myself, to get back to writing, to overcome some of the challenges that we experience, that I have experienced with writing. I'd love to know in the comments, what tips and tricks would you have to share about getting yourself to write when you're feeling really resistant to writing. So let me know in the comments, because I could always use more tips and tricks. I know you can too, so please feel free to share in the comments. Here I am doing a tiny task. Thanks so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. See you back here soon.